A great example is typical people expect eye contact to show that you're listening, which makes absolutely no sense because I don't listen with my eyes. In fact, what I see can be very distracting to me, so I'm not really paying attention to what I'm hearing from my perspective. But from theirs, if I'm not giving them eye contact, then everything is no. You're. If I talk when I'm without giving eye contact, I'm being deceitful. I'm hiding something. Um, if I give eye contact and I give it too much, I'm staring. Oh, now I'm intimidating you. Do you see that whole thing around what they expect, and yet when they don't get it, they misinterpret? That's probably the best example of miscommunication.
Hi, I'm Staci Neustadt. I am a speech language pathologist and the CEO at Making Sense of Autism, and I'm a student of Susan.
And I'm Susan Golubock. I am a now retired occupational therapist who has worked many, many years after I discovered even my own autism with other autistic individuals. I founded Making Sense of Autism because of my passion to not only understand my brain and how it worked differently, but to try to explain what I've learned to other people so that they're more understanding and therefore more accepting and more accommodating to autistic individuals.
So, our goal is to help you provide the right support without trying to fix autism, but by understanding it. So, whether you're a parent, teacher, therapist, or just someone who wants to learn, you're in the right place. Be sure to subscribe and join us every week. We talk about a new topic. Thank you for being here at the Making Sense of Autism podcast and taking the time to better understand autistic individuals. If our message resonates with you, make sure to subscribe and follow along. We also share a weekly newsletter with free tools and ideas you can use right away. Sign up at our website, www.makingsenseofautism.com. I'm Staci and I'm a speech language pathologist. And I know when I was trained in school, I was trained that how everything wrong with autistic students related around communication, which even as I say that, that sounds so awful because we're not here to fix, we're really here to understand. And what if we reframed that idea of what we're taught is wrong about autistic communication, but not that the problem is with autistic individuals, it's with the framework where they're using to measure autistic social communication and how we perceive their communication. So today we're going to be busting the biggest misconceptions around autistic social communication. And it's going to change how you assess, how you write goals, and how you show up for your autistic students or clients. So Sue, as an autistic individual yourself and occupational therapist, what do you feel like is the number one misconception that you had as an occupational therapist and as an autistic individual when it comes to social communication?
Well, what it is not is autistics are trying really hard to communicate, but we are so misunderstood and we can't understand why. So where is that gap? And how do we bridge that gap so that you understand the message we're trying to send and we understand the message back that you're trying to send us? And there's obviously a breakdown there. And a lot of it has to do with the simply fact we don't have the ability to express ourselves in the same way because of our neurological differences. We can't express ourselves in the way that you're used to receiving messages. We don't have the words, or we don't show the gestures, whatever it is, we're not doing it in a way that you are used to picking them up. And so they get misinterpreted. And the same thing, vice versa. You use words that are non-concrete, literal, and that we don't understand, and you're making expectations based on what you've said, and we don't know how to follow through and how to do or respond. We don't can't pluck out the words. So miscommunication is probably the biggest um, uh, uh, um, obstacle standing in the way to understanding each other.
Yeah, and that goes along with the number one misconception is that autistic students lack communication skills. I think we start to have that misconception when there is that gap. And we're blaming it on autistic individuals, saying they lack communication skills. But no, it's just as equal on our part. We're just not interpreting that communication correctly. And so if we start to reframe it as they just have it's a different communication style, which this is where kind of that double empathy theory comes in, where autistic individuals communicate well with other autistic individuals. Not that there's a lack of communication skills, it's just that there's different styles. And being aware of that is so important because some people are very direct and literal and honest. And unfortunately, that is interpreted as rude or argumentative, but maybe that is their style of how they communicate. So instead of viewing that through a judgmental lens, getting curious of, hey, is this how they communicate? And neurotypical communication has always just been that gold standard, and our assessments reflect that bias, but that doesn't mean that's how we should be viewing communication skills.
A great example is typical people expect eye contact to show that you're listening, which makes absolutely no sense because I don't listen with my eyes. In fact, what I see can be very distracting to me, so I'm not really paying attention to what I'm hearing from my perspective. But from theirs, if I'm not giving them eye contact, then everything is no. You're. If I talk when I'm without giving eye contact, I'm being deceitful. I'm hiding something. Um, if I give eye contact and I give it too much, I'm staring. Oh, now I'm intimidating you. Do you see that whole thing around what what they expect, and yet when they don't get it, they misinterpret? That's probably the best example of miscommunication um, between typicals and neurodivergent people.
Absolutely. And that is misconception number two, that no eye contact means they're not engaged. I work with a lot of students who, especially while they're listening in class, might doodle or just be
Mhm.
drawing different pictures because that's how they can engage best. Actually, I have a student who's neurodivergent who he'll sit and play kind of like nonsense games where there's no language to keep his brain engaged while he's listening to his online classes. And he does really well that way. And so there's definitely different ways people's brains work in order to engage in conversation or engage in learning. And I know for many autistic students, they've shared like eye contact actually reduces their ability to process what the teacher is saying or the individual is saying. So avoiding eye contact is a communication strategy. It really is self-regulation. It doesn't mean less respect. And I feel like this message has gotten a lot of traction over the years, but I do still see it. I was in a classroom a week ago where a teacher said, "Where are my eyes? I need your listening eyes." And I just thought, those are not for listening, it's our ears. But you can see that we still have a lot of work to go. And I know as a speech pathologist, I often also hear misconception number three, that if the standardized test says that their pragmatic language is within average range, they're fine. I know you and I talk a lot about how some autistic individuals cognitively know the answers, but then don't demonstrate those skills. Where do you feel like the gap is in those situations? And what should professionals be doing? Do they serve these kids and support them?
This is what I found frustrating working as an OT and occasionally having sessions with speech therapists, um, is that there's a lot of word bombardment being given. Um, Autistics are capable of mimicking, and through with enough repetition, they will pick it up. But if they don't understand why, what value or purpose does it have other than in this situation, that person seems to be expecting that. So therefore, I will perform to please that individual and do what it is and say what it is they seem to want me to do and say, but I'm not going to use it in other situations if I don't see the value to it. If these skills are not taught in the context in which they are needed, not taught, say this, do this, and then if I do it and say it often enough, they say, no, they got it. It's checked off. And then they wonder why that individual, they never see the individual ever use it.
Mhm.
They memorized it because that's the way you taught it to me, is
Mhm.
through memorization and repetition, but not in the context in which I would use it.
Yes. Yes. And that's why I know it's so important. One of our tools that we have is explaining to individuals of what skill I'm learning, why I'm learning it, where I'm going to use it, who am I going to use it with, when am I going to use it. And I find when we use that strategy, they do generalize that skill because they understand all the pieces that come with it. Whereas, unfortunately, you're right. I feel like many times when we're doing any sort of social skills therapy or support, it is very siloed and more of even when they talk about like role play, well, yes, that can be a memorized script. But if you're not talking about, okay, now when might you use this script? When do you not use this script? Who do you use it with? There's so many other pieces that go with that. So our reframe with this is that the tests measure knowledge of social skills in a structured, low pressure setting, which is not natural communication. So you're not really measuring what happens in a loud cafeteria or a group project or unexpected social moment. And if that's when they need the most support, then noticing and supporting those moments. So joining them in the cafeteria or joining them during group projects is really what is going to help them, and providing that justification. But that's where the standardized test isn't going to show the need. Doing more of questionnaire and observation in those different environments is going to support that need. And this is where I feel like sometimes speech therapists say, oh, well, the counselor can work on that, or the teacher can work on that. I know I have opinion about putting it on other people. What are your thoughts on who should be working on it and supporting it?
Well, this is like saying with the elephant, okay, you get the trunk, you get the left foot, you get the tail, you get um, it's so fractured
Mhm.
that this is what the individual picks up from those situations. In this setting with that person, this is the way I respond. And these are the words they need me to use. Whereas in this situation, typical children learn different behavior in different settings with different people. They very quickly pick up what's expected. And so an autistic's going to do the same thing, but they're only going to use that skill with that person under those circumstances in that situation. And that's not generalizing. That's not helping us learn to see the value of what we've learned and then retain it in our memory as a value, something I want to remember, and I'm going to keep practicing and using so that I don't forget it because I see the value to it. Otherwise, it's like five different people teaching a dog. Each one has a different trick that they teach the dog in their setting, and the dog is confused as to, well, but I only use it with you. I don't use it with you.
Mhm. So are you saying really an ideal situation, everybody's supporting this individual? So you create a
Yes,
plan and
yes.
maybe the speech therapist works on it explicitly, going through the when you use it, why, who, when, and then the teacher also uses some of that same language to make sure if there's those moments, whether it be a group project or participating in class, also supporting, oh, remember, this is when, we use whatever that skill is. And if a counselor is needed, especially work on mental health
Emotional.
support, the emotional piece of it, or an OT, the emotional awareness regulation piece. So it really is a team effort instead of putting it on one person, because every person in that team is going to help support that individual in a different way, because social skills aren't just about the words we use, right? That it's that emotional piece, it's the regulation piece of, am I regulated in the classroom or in the loud cafeteria? It's the body awareness of, where is my body in this moment? So there's so many pieces to it. So it isn't just one person working on supporting the student. And that's really where you see the most progress. Because if one of us is just working in it in an isolated situation, it is not going to generalize. We all kind of have to work on it. So these three myths are really important to think about, as well as the reframe that autistic students, they don't lack communication skills. There's different communication styles. No eye contact does not mean that they're not engaged. Actually, it's probably that they're more in tune to what you're saying because they're not looking and they can process better. And then if the standardized test says they're average, doesn't necessarily mean that they're fine. Supporting the individual in all environments so that the skills can be supported with whatever it is that they want support with, and better understanding and different perspective with how social communication might be different in different environments, or how to regulate for social communication in a loud cafeteria versus a group project. So hopefully you have a different view on social communication today. We aren't trained to see autistic communication as a different dialect. We're trained to see it as a broken version of ours. And until we fix that lens, our assessments, our goals, and our therapy will keep missing the mark. And so that change has to happen now so we all understand each other and we make those connections. We're not here to fix, we're here to understand. Thanks for the great perspective today, Sue, and sharing your insight.
Thank you, Staci, for asking.